Welcome, everybody, to the CFB broadcast, Week 13 College Football Review. We headed into basically the next to the last weekend of the regular season before we get into the conference championship games. And Week 13, it didn't produce a lot of big game matchups, but the games are getting more and more important as the season goes along. The SEC did their normal FCS scheduling weekend. From a scheduling standpoint, I really hate those games. Week games. I wish they would do away with it, but it seems to work well for the SEC. Speaking of the SEC, probably the marquee game was Texas A&M and Georgia. It was in a monsoon rain. And Georgia held on, but I would say they were far from spectacular.
Yeah, they don't. Georgia got their defense is good. I hadn't been overly impressed this year with Georgia's offense. They're kind of still the old school offense, which they're winning with it because they have such good defense. And honestly, I didn't think Georgia's defense was going to be as good this year as they were last year, but
they've gotten better.
I'm a little surprised that they're actually better than I thought they would be. But like you said, they had to hang on for dear life against Texas A&M.
Yeah.
And that I know the conditions were bad. It was bad for both teams, but Georgia, escaped again. So
yeah, it was a good win for Georgia to hold on. Texas A&M, they're getting better. They've had a monstrous schedule as they've played Alabama, Georgia. They're going to play LSU this week. They've had to play Auburn. They've had to play Clemson. They've had a tough schedule, so they could end up after this weekend. They could say they played basically the whole top five.
They did.
So
I thought I saw where they said this could be the first time in history that a team has played in the regular season 3 number one teams.
They played Clemson when they were number one. They played Alabama when they were number one, and they're going to play LSU when they are probably number one. I don't see them falling, but we'll get into that a little bit later on in the rankings. Another win in the SEC of note, Tennessee.
Bowling. They're going bowling.
Bowl eligible, and who would have thought it after the first 2 weeks when they went 0-2, lost to Georgia State, and then they turn around and lose to BYU. So
I think you got to look at Pruitt for SEC Coach of the Year.
Well, he or Orgeron. Orgeron to get it, but Pruitt's done a good job at turning that around, and they'll win this weekend over Vanderbilt. They'll have 7 wins. They'll get to go to the Gator Bowl, Citrus Bowl, or a bowl like that, depending on how the seat. Probably not to Citrus.
Well, Spurrier said you can't spell citrus without UT.
Yeah, that's right.
But they would love to go to the Citrus Bowl.
They would love to go to the Birmingham Bowl. They just happy to go bowling.
They do look like a different football team.
They do. So, and it'll be interesting to see how that shapes up next year because they're going in with a little bit of momentum. And I expect with all these quarterbacks leaving the SEC to be wide open next year. So we will see how that good win, good turnaround for Tennessee, though. Ohio State continues to show that they're dominant as they just manhandled Penn State. The game ended up being a 17, 18-point game, but Penn State was really always in control of that game.
Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State was. I'm sorry.
I think it was 28-7 at one.
It was 21-0 at one time, and then 21-17, and then they end up winning the game 35-17. Good win, or 28-17. A good win for Ohio State, as they are dominant. So
they are.
But probably, or not probably, but the game of the day in the nation happened out west in Arizona State and Tempe, as I think Oregon State, all they had to do was win out. They would have been in the playoff. And
couldn't handle the pressure.
Couldn't handle it. Went to Arizona State, a place Oregon has had trouble playing in Arizona in the desert over the years when they've been highly ranked. And they were basically dominated. They end up closing the gap and making the game closer than what it was, but they were beaten. So playoff no more.
Yeah, it was a good game. I think I had to go back and listen, but I think you last week on the thing you said that could be a tricky spot for Oregon. I think you kind of liked Arizona State, and it turned out to be a really good game. I wasn't really impressed with Herbert. You know, he looked really shaky.
Yeah, he looked bad.
You know, I don't know. If he's the number one pick in the draft, I don't know what people's looking at. But anyway, Arizona State's freshman quarterback, I thought, played out of his mind, and I'm glad Arizona State won.
I'm surprised I am too. I'm surprised Herm Edwards really took the job, but he seems to. They're a young team, and they played good. Like you said, that the freshman quarterback that Arizona State has, they will be a team to be dealt with in the future. He can run, but he doesn't really run a whole lot. He doesn't turn the ball over. He outplayed Herbert last night, and a true freshman, only 18 years old. So a good win. You know, I expected chaos to start happening. You know, usually you have that weekend a year where you have that weekend where everybody loses that's highly ranked, or you have a lot of top 10 teams that lose that are ranked. We haven't had that yet. Maybe we'll have that this weekend with Rivalry weekend. We'll see. But that was the first domino to fall. If Alabama is to get back into the top 4. So the rankings came out today, moving into the rankings, and basically they stayed the same in the AP, or, you know, now it's time to kind of move away from the AP rankings. We started with the AP rankings. The playoff committees, they have had a couple of rankings published throughout the week. LSU and Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia's at 4, Alabama is 5, Oregon was 6. They will be no more, and the media was starting to push them, and you could already see the pundits come out. If Oregon wins out, they'll pass Alabama. Herb Street last week on the show said Alabama was a placeholder, that he expected Alabama to get passed in the rankings. And I don't know. Now you're starting to hear them talk about Utah and how Utah is this. Penn State's gotten their second loss. They were 8th. They're gone. Last night, Oklahoma held on to beat TCU.
That was a lot going on at one time last night as we were talking on the phone with the games were going on. You were saying we got a lot going on right now. So, and I was flipping back and forth, and I don't know that TCU would have won the game, but they got
I seen a lot of people complain about that spot.
Got a bad call on that third down call where they gave Oklahoma that first down. Now I don't know if TCU would have been able to score, but Oklahoma.
He did not get close to that first down marker.
It wasn't.
And they give it to him. And then they reviewed it. What did
they got it? Well, I guess they're trying to keep Oklahoma close.
Well, they're trying to keep Oklahoma and Baylor, it looks like, as a one-loss team. Baylor had a big win over Texas yesterday. They'll rise up in the poll. They're trying to keep them as a one-loss champion. And questions I have is, one, I think all this show that they do, that they put on each week, where this committee comes out, it's just creating a bunch of
that's why we're
a
sitting here talking
narrative that
about
they want. Though, they're
doing what they want. They're the whole thing is a promotional, keep suspense going, just like that's why reason why we're sitting here talking about it, and they want everybody else to talk about it. But like you said earlier, I ain't really that worried about Oklahoma. My question is, why is Georgia at number 4?
Well, I will say this. I totally agree. I do not see how you could have Georgia at 4 when they lost at home to South Carolina. I realize Alabama's schedule what it is, and it's pitiful. And I realize, but
well, who else has Georgia played?
Alabama has done
Notre Dame.
Exactly. Ohio State's not played anybody. They played Penn State this week. They won that game. They're going to play Michigan next week, and I believe that if they win those games, Ohio State will go to number 1 over LSU. Either way, it doesn't really matter. LSU will beat number 2. Clemson's going to be number 3.
Well, who have they played?
They've not played anybody and won't play anybody. And I like you.
I guess they get the benefit of the doubt. You can give them. I really don't have a problem with Clemson being in the top 5. Even though they don't really play anybody, they proved that they belong there. And they're
defending champions.
Yeah.
You got to. I got no problem with that. If they lose, they're out. But who's going to beat them? I don't see anybody beating them.
No.
South Carolina's not going to beat them, although the point spread is about the same as it was for the Georgia game. But that being said, Clemson will go undefeated. Those 3 teams, I think, have solidified their place into the playoff. We will see how that shakes out. I think a lot of things could happen between now and then.
So what is the committee looking at?
Let's
say Georgia, we've played 2 common opponents.
Mm-hmm.
We've played South Carolina at South Carolina and beat them by, 18, 20 points.
Mm-hmm.
We played Texas A&M at Texas A&M and beat them by 18 to 20 points. Georgia lost to South Carolina at home and had to hang on by the hair of their chinny chin to beat Texas A&M at home.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. I assume. I mean, not assume. My feeling is Alabama should be in the number 4 spot. Now, whether they could hold that spot because they're not going to play in the SEC championship game, and what happens, but my opinion at this point in time, Alabama should be in the 4th spot.
They should be in it, but I don't think it matters in the long run because if Georgia beats LSU, they would have passed anybody anyway.
Right.
I think they've got Georgia ahead of Alabama because they know that is the SEC matchup. They're basically telling you that winner of that game is going, which we know, to the SEC championship game. Ohio State, they have a game this week that they could lose. Believe it or not, Harbaugh and them, this game means nothing to Ohio State in that they're still going to the championship game. If they win the Big Ten, they will go to the playoff, even if they lose. So you may even see a case where maybe they don't play Fields the second half. Maybe they don't take a chance at getting anybody hurt.
He got
I'm sure he did. He did. I'm sure they want to beat Michigan. They want to keep that foot on their throat, but I'm sure they realize that Michigan wants to beat them badly, and it would do them. But it doesn't matter if they lose that game. If they win the Big 12, they are in. It would just affect the seeding.
Big Ten.
Big Ten.
They're in, yeah.
They're in.
No matter what.
So it doesn't matter what happens in that game. So, and they will play they will play the winner of the Minnesota and Wisconsin game this weekend for the battle for Paul Bunyan's axe goes on. And the winner of that game will play Ohio State, and I expect Ohio State, the winner of if Ohio State will more than likely win that game, and they will go. Clemson doesn't have anybody with a heartbeat on their schedule, so then that comes up to the 4th spot. If they run the table, Alabama, and LSU win, they need LSU to win.
Yeah, LSU needs to win.
LSU needs to win out, and Georgia needs to lose. If that happens and Alabama wins out, do you think they're in?
I want to think so, but I'm a little concerned because, like we were talking earlier, I don't know if and I can't remember 100% that has a one-loss non-conference champion ever got in over a one-loss conference champion. And now this year, that's including the Pac-12, it looks like they may have a one-loss champion.
Yeah.
Maybe. If Baylor wins. Not Baylor. If
Oklahoma runs the table, if Utah runs the table. Yeah. I do not think Alabama will get in if there's a one-loss champion in the Pac-12. I think they've got to have Utah to lose. We needed Utah to lose.
Who has Utah beat?
But nobody. They've not beaten anybody, but they've played 9 conference games, and you will hear that. You will hear. Here's your talking points that you will hear.
Utah play anybody in the.
I agree.
It's about money.
I agree,
it's
but
about
it's about
money. It's about ratings. Would you rather? Who would watch a Utah Clemson game or a Bama Clemson game?
I firmly believe that Alabama is one of the top 4 teams, without a doubt. I'm just saying that I do not think they will leave out a one-loss Pac-12 champion. Utah, it was not going to happen. Utah got beat. I would say, if you're an Alabama fan, you root for Utah to beat Utah. You root for Oregon to beat Utah in the Pac-12 championship. Or you root for Colorado to beat them this weekend. Either way, you hope Utah gets a loss along the way. And then
you got the Big 12.
You got the Big 12 to deal with.
But, I mean, Oklahoma to me has been skating by. Oklahoma does not look like a championship caliber team. They just don't. I mean, they're barely winning.
Yeah, but they're a name. They're a blue blood. They're a name, and I would say that if it's Oklahoma, 50-50 shot who would get in there. There will be some on that committee that may be tired of that transfer of the quarterback coming in. You know, all that shouldn't matter, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with a lot of politics in that room, and I think they have to try to please everybody. So,
and the chairman is the athletic director at Oregon. I mean, who makes that kind of decision? I mean, I believe you should. If no AD should be in a Division I school, should be in that room, and they just do it to control it. I'm glad Oregon's out of the picture now, but I wouldn't be a bit surprised. You'd hear them trying to talk them up if they win it. Yeah,
but like they tried to with the 2-loss Ohio State team a couple years ago.
Yeah,
but we will see. It'll be interesting to see when the polls come out this week. I think for the top 5 will stay basically unchanged. You may see a change between Ohio State and LSU. I doubt it. I kind of think they will keep everything there. I think they will keep Alabama at 5 for the time being. Alabama looked dominant enough. Utah will move to 6, and you will probably have Oklahoma going to 7. And one of those is going to have to win out. One of those will end up being the 4th seed. We'll see how it shakes out. If you're an Alabama fan, you're rooting for Oregon the rest of the way. You're rooting for LSU the rest of the way. And you want Ohio State to win the Big Ten. Still a lot of work to do. Not impossible. We'll see what happens.
Got a lot easier after Saturday last night.
Yep.
That was one of the dominoes that had to fall.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and the sooner the better. So, and then we move from week 13 to week 14, rivalry week.
It's already here.
It's everybody has these helmet schedules. It's week 1, 2, all the way through. Well, this is the last one on the column. This is the rivalry week. This is when teams play their big rivals, and we have always a lot of hate week, a lot of
jawing back and forth. Seasons are made and lost on whether you can win this game. Bragging rights.
And it starts Thursday night. It's in the SEC.
Egg Bowl
over in Starkville, Mississippi this year. So a lot disappointed fans with Moorhead and how the Bulldogs have played. I would say that Ole Miss has been better than what we thought this year. Wouldn't you say that?
I think they're not as bad as what everybody predicted. I mean, yeah, their record isn't that great, but they're playing hard, and
seem to have playing a lot of young kids. They play at Mississippi State, and when that line came out this afternoon, they were actually a 1-point favorite. Now, it's quickly moved to Mississippi State being a 2-point favorite, but I really like Ole Miss in this game.
Is it at State?
It's at State, but State, they didn't look impressive this week with the FCS team that they played, a team I'd never heard of, Abilene Christian. So I'd never heard of them. So
they beat them 45-7.
Yeah, but it was fairly close at halftime. I mean, I've never even heard of this team.
Yeah, it was 14-7 at halftime.
Yeah,
I mean, I kind of like Ole Miss in this game myself. So I will see what happens. I think
if Moorhead loses, they'll be ready to get rid of him at State.
I think they're ready to get rid of him now. Well, he's got to win. They need to win this game to get to a bowl eligible.
Right,
so.
Correct. Ole Miss has already got 7 losses, so if Ole Miss wins, you basically got 2 teams at 5-7. Now, they give bowl games to everybody now, so the SEC doesn't have enough teams to go to bowls. So, and then if you get 2 teams in the playoff, you even lose more. So you never know. One of them could end up being. So Ole Miss could be looking at this. Hey, if we win this game, we got a better claim than State does.
Yeah.
So you never know if it got down that far. So I really like Ole Miss. So we will see. Both coaches, I think, need a win. We will see. Then Friday we got Virginia Tech at Virginia. And basically the winner of that game, I think, is basically playing for a spot to the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
You got the ACC has to send somebody to the Orange Bowl by contract.
Yeah.
And if Clemson's in the playoff, you don't have another team. So the winner of this game would go to the Orange Bowl and could play. If Alabama didn't make the playoff, they could be playing Alabama. So we will see. Then Saturday morning at 11, it starts bright and early. You've got Ohio State at Michigan. We've talked about this a little bit earlier. This game really doesn't mean anything to Ohio State.
It doesn't mean anything, but I think Ohio State's probably.
They want to beat them.
I think they're going to beat. I think they're going to beat them soundly.
But if you're the coach, do you sacrifice getting an injury?
Well, I don't want to lose. I mean, I know it don't really in the scheme of things, it don't mean anything, but you never want to lose to your rival, especially, Michigan, Ohio State. I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't either, but, I mean, you want to stay healthy for the conference championship game because you can't lose both of those games and not go. So you have to go into that game. Just watch that game. I really like Michigan in that game. I really think that they have a good shot at pulling an upset there. So, and I think if it gets out from them early, Ohio State will set some players and get them ready for the next week because that's the game that they have to win. More so than this game. They could even lose the championship game and probably still be okay. But so they've got a mulligan. We'll see what happens with Ohio State. But if you're Alabama fan, you really don't. You just want them to win the Big Ten. So that's where you are with there. And who Ohio State will play in the championship game? Wisconsin at Minnesota, where Minnesota's a 3.5-point underdog at home. And game day's going there for the first time. And it's going to be a big scene. P.J. Fleck has really done a good job at Minnesota. Who do you like in that one?
I'd like Minnesota. I like Minnesota. It's at Minnesota, so
it's at Minnesota. I kind of do too. That scares me because
Wisconsin hadn't looked. I mean, yeah, they look.
At times, you remember we talked about their defense in the start of the year,
and then they lost a couple.
Yeah.
So
you never. I mean,
they're still good, but I think Minnesota is pretty good too. But like you said, they were. After you go back and look at Minnesota's schedule and all the games they won, they were just barely beating some of these small, the teams they should really beat big, but it's at home, and they're fired up, and P.J. Fleck, like you said, has them playing really well. Yeah. So I kind of like Minnesota in this one.
I do too, a little bit. I'm a little bit scared of it, but I do like Minnesota. I like and if you look at that, it's a lot of home dogs this week, a lot of home underdogs in these rivalry games, and it basically comes down to who wants it more. And we will end on the one that really matters most around here. Well, you have other games. You've got the LSU Texas A&M game that's 7 overtime game. Doesn't really mean a whole lot for LSU. They've got that game. They want to get even. Yeah. They want to get even with A&M from that 7 overtime game where they felt like they were robbed, and I felt like they were as well. Yeah. But the game of the day, Alabama at Auburn. Alabama came out as a 3-point favorite, or 3.5-point favorite right now. We talked about Tua's injury. We talked about, does Alabama belong in the 14 playoff? Well, it doesn't matter if you don't win this game. You've got to win this game, and I think you need to look good doing it, and I think you need help along the way, but this is the Iron Bowl. This right here would make either team's season. It's been a disappointing season for both teams up until this point. But who do you like?
Well, I got to like Alabama because that's my team, but I think it's going to be tough, and, the line at what it is, you think, how one player makes a difference. If, I think if Tua was playing in this game, Alabama would probably be 10 or 11-point favorite. But now that he's out, the line is just we're still a favorite. But it's going. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I mean, it's going to be tough. I think we have the players to win the game. If Mac Jones, I thought he played good the other day against that middle school team they played, but he still had to make the plays, and he's not a bad player. He's capable of winning the game. He has good players around him, good receivers. Of course, like we said, Auburn's defense is the best is the best we've played this year. So I hope Sark's got a good game plan to, counter that. So
I think he's every bit as good as Bo Nix, without a doubt. I think that. I don't think Bo Nix is that good. I didn't buy into the hype when they started with him. But I will say that this is the best defense in the SEC.
And our defense isn't that good.
Our defense is young, and they've got a lot of growing up to do. But at times they've looked good, but I don't think they have to be that great against Auburn to shut them down.
And you know how crazy things happen down there in that stadium.
Ole Miss slowed them down, and our defense is leaps and bounds better than Ole Miss. As young and inexperienced as it is, it's leaps and bounds better than what Ole Miss is. And Ole Miss defense was able to slow them down. Georgia's defense basically shut them down until they're in the fourth quarter. They kind of got the momentum. They were able to move the ball. They had that one receiver that really, But at the end of the day, their offense wasn't any match for Georgia's defense. We're going to find out about Mac Jones, and we're going to find out about Alabama. Do they belong? Hey, it's all right there in front of you.
I mean, all the talk ain't going to make no difference if you don't win. This is a must win.
It doesn't matter who's favored. It doesn't matter who's anything. It doesn't matter who's injured. The game starts Saturday at 2:30. Bring your best, and whoever wins, wins. And I really like Alabama's spot, though. I still believe they're one of the fourth best teams in the country. They are going to have a little help, I believe, to get there to the playoffs. You think they're in pretty good shape if they went out? We will see. They're supposed to put the four best teams, but we will see. I like Alabama to win that game 27-13 style.
Sounds good to me. I'll take it.
So, and we will see. We will see what happens. And the final regular season game is wrapping up. Thank you guys much for watching this Week 13 review. It's been a fun season. Next week we'll have a wrap-up of the season, kind of tell where we think teams will go. It will be right before the conference championship games. We'll see who we think will be in the top four. If Alabama wins, what scenario do they need to have happen? And then we'll kind of go through the teams who had a good season, who had a better than expected season, who had a down season, and whatnot. So we'll go from there.
Yep.
Josh and Lamar coming to you from She Shed Radio Studios. Thank you guys much for listening. We would like to thank our producers and editors, Kimberly Madison and Perry Madison, for editing the show and putting this on. Thank you guys much. You get a chance, go check out She Shed Radio Studios, cfbbroadcast.com. Thank you guys much for listening. We'll see you next week. Rivalry Week's here. See you. Goodbye.